The most recent tragedy has devastated the Forte family, and Elena, in particular, has been deeply affected. The little girl looked at me and gave me a smile, as if acknowledging a marvelous child. This woman, evidently shattered by a sudden and irreparable loss, Rosaria Testa referred with great affection to her granddaughter. We invite you to watch this until the end, as it is filled with contrasts between innocence and malevolence, love and indifference, revenge and inevitability. The case of Martina Pati in a municipality called Mascalucia, one of the smallest in Italy, located on the Italian island of Sicily. Martina Pati and Alessandro del Pozo were born and lived their lives there. Little is known about their childhoods, but it is documented that they began a romance in their late teens and appeared happy and in love, enjoying their surroundings. Among other things, Mascalucia is known for its hospitality and its excellent view of the southern slope of the active Etna volcano. As a result of their 6-year relationship, the couple welcomed a baby girl named Elena, who brought joy not only to her parents but also to her grandparents. However, the relationship was fraught with ups and downs, particularly marked by mutual jealousy and even instances of violence, with each accusing the other of physical assault. Martina even filed a complaint against her partner for violence, though she later withdrew it, reportedly to avoid exacerbating her partner's situation, who was then being accused of involvement in a jewelry store robbery. Alessandro had a history of drug trafficking, although the details were not clarified. In 2022, there was a new and seemingly definitive breakup between 23-year-old Martina and Alessandro, who was 24 at the time. Their daughter, Elena, was a beautiful girl of almost 5 years old. While Alessandro's occupation was not specified, Martina was studying nursing at a well-known polyclinic. According to her classmates, Martina was a kind and reserved young woman. She had already graduated in physical education but chose to specialize in nursing for better job security and stability, aiming to provide a comfortable life for Elena, with whom she lived and of whom she was very proud. Martina frequently shared photos and stories of her daughter with her classmates. By mid-2022, both Alessandro and Martina had entered new relationships. Martina had been seeing a young man named Francesco for about a month and a half. Francesco, however, didn't think much of their budding relationship, as they were both very busy and only went out a few times, usually with a group of friends. On the other hand, Alessandro appeared to have a more stable relationship with a girl whose name was not disclosed but who was seen by his side during both good and challenging times. Regarding Elena, there seemed to be no significant issues. She spent time with her father and paternal grandparents before returning to her mother's care. Elena was known to be more intelligent and sociable than many of the other children at the daycare center, which is referred to as an asilo in Italy. She was outgoing with her classmates and even those a bit older, always cheerful and smiling when she arrived, and when she left, often waving goodbye. Although Elena was described as a happy child by those who knew the family from the outside, the reality within the closest circles was less peaceful. Even after the separation, tensions persisted, particularly from Martina's side. For instance, there were incidents of social media posts where, after Alessandro shared a picture with his new girlfriend, Martina quickly responded with a photo of her own new boyfriend. This public display of their tumultuous relationship added to the strain. Allegations of violence were made once again, with claims that Alessandro was mistreating Elena, while his family and paternal aunt alleged that Martina was the one abusing the child. They even reported instances where they had to intervene to protect Elena from Martina's physical aggression. With this brief background on the volatile situation between Elena's parents, we come to Monday, June 13, 2022. Elena had spent the weekend with Alessandro and his family, including a night with her paternal grandparents. Early Monday morning, as usual, the grandmother took Elena to the daycare center, greeting her with a kiss and a hug. Elena participated enthusiastically in her activities throughout the day. When Martina arrived to pick her up, Elena ran into her arms, and Martina embraced her lovingly. After exchanging farewells with the teacher, they boarded their vehicle to head home. However, shortly before 4 p.m., a distressing call came in for Alessandro from his ex-partner, who was frantic and shouting that Elena had been kidnapped. The woman's screams were piercing, and the only information Alessandro could gather was that someone had intercepted her on the road after she had picked up Elena from daycare. Martina reported that after picking up her daughter from the daycare center, they were en route home when they were suddenly intercepted by an unknown vehicle. A hooded man emerged from this vehicle, confronted Martina, and demanded she hand over Elena. Martina, stunned and unable to comprehend the situation, watched in horror as the man forced open the car door, grabbed Elena, and sped away. The Pazzo family quickly mobilized to search for Elena based on the information Martina provided. Martina's parents, whom she had also called, went to her home to transport her to the Carabinieri headquarters to file a formal complaint. The Carabinieri, the Italian military police force, were notified of the kidnapping of Elena, who was about to turn 5 years old the following month. After a brief period to regain her composure, Martina informed the authorities that the abduction occurred near the area known as Piano di Trimestieri, not far from the daycare center. When asked by the authorities if she could recognize any of the attackers or suggest a motive for the abduction, Martina speculated that the incident might be connected to Alessandro's past. She revealed that during his previous involvement in a robbery case, Alessandro had received a threatening note warning him and his daughter to remain silent. Martina also noted that Alessandro had previously been violent towards her and Elena. As the interrogation continued, the officers issued an alert with the details provided by the distraught mother and included a photo of Elena. This information was quickly disseminated to other police agencies and media outlets. The news rapidly spread through social networks, urging anyone who had seen a suspicious vehicle with a child on board or had witnessed the abduction to contact the authorities immediately. Elena's photo quickly went viral as the police established checkpoints in the area. Simultaneously, authorities began reviewing security camera footage from the vicinity of the incident and expanded their search between the daycare center and Martina's home. However, certain aspects of Martina's account were raising concerns among investigators. She could not provide specific details about the vehicle involved in the abduction, offering only vague descriptions and failing to recall the color or license plate. She estimated that there were 3 men involved but could not determine if there were any witnesses present. Even more puzzling was Martina's failure to immediately call 112, the European Union's emergency number available for free from any phone. Instead of utilizing this critical resource, she opted to return home, contact her relatives, and report the incident to her parents before heading to the police station 2 hours later. This delay, coupled with the family's lack of resources, led investigators to question the possibility of a financially motivated abduction. During the initial stages of the investigation, the authorities allowed the distressed mother to return home while they continued searching for Elena. One of their actions included interviewing Alessandro and his family. Meanwhile, police officers discovered an abandoned vehicle that seemed to match the vague descriptions provided by Martina. However, it was soon determined that this vehicle was not involved in the crime. The investigation revealed something much more serious. The alleged abduction was revealed to be a fabrication. 24 hours after the incident, Martina returned to the police headquarters, this time accompanied by her parents, to reveal the disturbing truth of what had actually happened. This truth was both incomprehensible and repugnant. According to Martina's revised statement, on the morning of Monday, June 13th, she had been studying for an exam at the nursing school. After noon, she dressed and went to pick up Elena from the daycare center at 1 p.m., then took her home. They planned to have a chocolate dessert and watch cartoons on Martina's cell phone. Martina mentioned that while she was ironing, Elena was happy, anticipating a visit to a friend's house later for a birthday celebration. Martina then recounted that she and Elena left the house again, intending to play in the park. Elena remembered she had left a toy behind, so they returned to retrieve it. Martina stated that after that, her recollection became hazy. She recalled descending the stairs leading to the street, but beyond that, her memory was unclear. Continuing her account, Martina said it was around 2:30 p.m. when they left the house once more. She was unsure if she had taken anything with her from home and could not remember if she had grabbed a shovel from her uncle's garden. Nevertheless, she proceeded with Elena to a piece of land about 600 meters from their house, a place she had visited previously to plant asparagus. In the continuation of her statement, Martina mentioned that she had a vague image of a knife in her mind but could not recall where she had obtained it. She also had no memory of attacking Elena directly, only a sense of having cried excessively, possibly because she realized the gravity of her actions and was unsure of what to do next. Despite her training to remain composed and gain the trust of her interrogators, the police persisted in questioning Martina about the inconsistencies in her story. Gradually, she began to disclose more details. For example, she recalled that when she left the house, she took a knife, a barbecue tool, and several garbage bags with her. At the site, while Elena's back was turned, Martina covered her with one of the garbage bags and then began to attack her with the knife. Martina could not explain what motivated her actions during the attack and described the experience as though she were a different person at the time. She noted that she felt an unprecedented strength while assaulting her daughter. Initially, she claimed not to remember burying Elena, but later admitted that, following the attack, she had dug a hole and buried her daughter. Martina also stated that she did not recall what happened to the knife after the incident, but remembered burying her daughter in the ground. After the burial, she returned home to change her clothes. Although she claimed that her clothes were not soaked in blood, she had stains on her arms. Martina was extremely distressed and attempted to contact Alessandro, but her agitation made communication difficult. Subsequently, she went to her parents' house seeking support. Martina was deeply confused, and the events seemed almost surreal to her. When she reunited with her parents and Alessandro, she fabricated the story of the abduction, drawing on the previous threats made by her ex-partner. After leaving the police station following the initial interrogation, she began to recollect the truth of what had happened. Fearful that revealing the truth might distress her father, she reluctantly shared the details with him. Martina's father took appropriate action by returning with her to the police headquarters. Following her confession, Martina was arrested on charges of aggravated multiple homicide and concealment of a body. The investigation was then redirected to verify her account, address the numerous gaps in her story, and determine the underlying motive behind her horrific act. To uncover this motive, Martina's cell phone was confiscated for a detailed examination of her messages and internet searches. Extended interrogations were conducted with family and friends to seek any potential reason that might have driven Martina to commit such a heinous crime against her own sweet and intelligent daughter. Security camera footage from the morning of the incident showed Martina engaging in her routine exercise run. Later, footage from the daycare center captured Elena running into Martina's arms and bidding farewell to her friends before leaving for home. Road surveillance devices confirmed that Martina's car, with Elena inside, safely traveled the route between the daycare and their home, disproving the alleged assault by unknown assailants. The day after the event, Martina guided the authorities to the field where the attack supposedly occurred. The area was promptly secured by investigators and heavily guarded to preserve it as a crime scene. The crime scene was meticulously preserved. The area was extremely free of any weeds, in stark contrast to the surrounding environment, which was densely covered with bushes that obscured the site from the street. It was barely covered with some dirt and remains of volcanic ash from Mount Etna. Among the debris, there was a black garbage bag, in fact 5 bags nested inside each other, and in the innermost bag the small body of Elena was found. At first glance, it showed multiple stab wounds. A few meters away from the site, a shovel and a barbecue with wooden handles were also found. Neighbors quickly realized that something significant was happening, and it didn't take long for news to spread that the remains of the missing girl had been discovered, while the authorities continued the somber task of recovering the body. Elena's paternal relatives began to arrive at the scene, including Alessandro. The desperate and enraged young father had to be restrained by security personnel to prevent him from entering the property. He withdrew, possibly to regain his composure, and was seen returning later. Not only was the family devastated, but Martina's neighbors were also unable to comprehend what was happening and condemned the incident. Veronica, Elena's teacher, was in disbelief. When asked by the Italian media, she said she never imagined Martina could be capable of harming her daughter, let alone attempting to take her life. Veronica always saw her as a responsible, loving, and involved mother in her daughter's school activities. After being removed from the scene, Elena's remains were handed over to the forensic medicine department for thorough examination. As revealed by the authorities later, Martina had pointed out the exact location where her daughter's remains were found. Martina's demeanor regarding her daughter's remains was consistently calm, distant, and almost absent, as if she hadn't committed an extremely serious act. She showed no sign of remorse, even while recounting the details of what she had done. This same behavior persisted during her new interrogation before the prosecution, where she did not provide any additional details beyond what she had already told the police. After various procedures were carried out, the authorities held a press conference to report on the discoveries made. Colonel Sika, commander of the Carabinieri Operations Department in Catania, summarized the motives behind Martina's actions. According to the information available, it was evident that Martina was deeply hurt by her separation from Alessandro, as they had been unable to reconcile, even for the sake of their daughter. Furthermore, it appeared that Martina had developed an obsession with Alessandro's new girlfriend. Martina was disturbed not only by the fact that Alessandro was now with someone else, but also by Elena's comments about how happy she was with her father and how much she liked the new girlfriend. Colonel Sika made it clear that Martina never directly explained her actions, but the authorities ruled out any involvement of other people in the crime. Investigators found no evidence suggesting that Elena's father or any accomplices were involved. The idea that Martina's daughter's father could be happy with another woman, combined with Elena's affection for the new girlfriend, seemed to have turned Elena into a weapon for Martina to inflict pain upon herself. Martina felt excluded from this newfound happiness. The girl became a tool for Martina to inflict pain on her partner, a situation some have linked to what is known as Medea syndrome. In fact, some sources claim that Alessandro and Martina met at some point after the disappearance. When he summoned her to reveal the truth, her response allegedly was that he would no longer want her because the girl was no longer there waiting for him. Martina was confined to an isolated cell under 24-hour surveillance at the Catania Women's Institute to prevent any attempts at self-harm. 4 days after the incident, she was formally presented in court before the examining magistrate for the validation of her detention. Martina reaffirmed her confession to the police, maintaining that she was the sole person involved in the crime that ended her daughter's life and led to the burial site. However, her account was plagued with gaps as she claimed not to remember parts of what happened. Despite the forensic results not yet being available, it was evident that the act was premeditated. Martina had brought not only the weapon used in the crime, but also a shovel and a barbecue to the scene. The authorities believed that Martina had attempted to complete a burial hole that was initially too small, which may have caused Elena's neck to break due to the force applied. Investigators also believed that Martina fabricated the story of the alleged abduction to shift some responsibility onto Elena's father. To make this story plausible, she had forcibly damaged the lock on one of her car doors, pretending it was through this door that the child had been forcibly removed. The judge confirmed the order for post-mortem examinations and, at the request of the prosecution, a toxicological test was also added. They hoped that the girl had at least been sedated. Shortly thereafter, the results of the autopsy performed at the Canizaro Hospital in Catania only deepened the relatives' anguish. The findings indicated that the girl had not died immediately. Elena's body displayed at least 11 penetrating wounds inflicted by a kitchen knife that was never found. These injuries would have been fatal by severing the vessels of an artery located at the base of the neck. The estimated time of death was more than an hour after the girl's lunch at the daycare center around 1 p.m. With the information gathered and the forensic results released, the investigating judge of Catania, Daniela Monaco, confirmed Martina's arrest. Martina was to remain behind bars awaiting trial. The judge stated that, based on the evidence from the confession, the woman was capable of planning the crime. She condemned the act, describing it as unnatural, repugnant, ethically immoral, reprehensible, despicable, and unacceptable in any context. The judge noted that it reflected a macabre criminal instinct and a high degree of dangerousness, exacerbated by the fact that Martina showed no signs of remorse or contrition. The prosecution announced that Martina would be charged with aggravated premeditated homicide, concealment of a corpse, and simulation of a crime. Journalists approached her defense attorney, Gabriele Celesti, who contradicted the public perception of his client. He stated that, contrary to what was being reported, Martina was not calm but extremely anguished. When she spoke about her daughter, she was filled with emotion and cried, confirming that his client was indeed deeply distressed. Gabriel Celesti, Martina's defense attorney, confirmed that his client was isolated and under surveillance to prevent her from attempting suicide or being assaulted by other inmates. He announced his intention to request a psychiatric evaluation to assess Martina's mental competency. Almost immediately after these statements, Alessandro, who had kept absolute silence and remained virtually confined to his home, broke his silence with a message to the media covering the case. He asserted that Martina was not insane and that what had happened was a cruel and premeditated crime. In his communication, Alessandro explained that he had initially avoided interviews due to his profound sadness, but decided to speak out because he sought justice for his daughter. He had heard about madness and morbid jealousy, but he had not seen evidence of malice and cruelty in those contexts. He explained that moments of insanity are followed by periods of lucidity, yet Martina had shown no remorse for taking her daughter's life. The grieving father highlighted that Martina had placed Elena's body in garbage bags, buried her, cleaned up, and fabricated an abduction story as an alibi. She had also tampered with her car to stage a fake attack. Upset, Alessandro's message was marked with exclamation points, emphasizing that 24 hours of deceit and the concealment of the crime should not be considered an episode of insanity. In his message, Alessandro detailed how Martina had spent time disparaging him and, upon realizing she could not keep him away from their daughter, had plotted to end Elena's life. He expressed devastation over the loss of his daughter and closed his statement by recalling his promise to protect her at all costs, something he never imagined he would have to protect her from her own mother. Meanwhile, investigators continued their work by conducting a thorough examination of the house where Martina and Elena lived. Neighbors gathered to bid farewell to the little girl, whom they described as not only physically beautiful, but also loving and intelligent, sometimes more intelligent than one would expect for her young age. The funeral services were organized by the Diocese of Catania and took place on June 22nd at the town's cathedral. The ceremony was led by the Italian Archbishop Luigi Rina, who, aware of the public's emotional response to the case, ensured that the service was broadcast on the Archdiocese of Catania's channels and social media. The cathedral was filled to capacity, with people gathered at the doors. In his homily, Archbishop Rina urged adults not to succumb to hatred for the girl's mother. He recalled reading a phrase on a city wall that called for eternal rest for Elena and eternal torment for her mother. The Archbishop acknowledged that such sentiments were a natural reaction from any child, but he used the moment to call for justice, dialogue, and the prevention of all forms of violence. He emphasized that only by achieving these goals would there be no more funerals like the one they were attending. He also urged adults to shield children from their conflicts. At the altar stood a small white coffin, accompanied by a photograph of Elena and several offerings, including a balloon shaped like a cartoon character. Throughout the investigation, no references or statements from Martina's parents were found. Outside the cathedral, a large crowd attended the somber event, releasing balloons into the sky and sharing in the collective grief of the farewell. As the funeral procession departed from the cathedral, neighbors expressed their sorrow at the site where Elena's body had been discovered. A solitary yet poignant tribute was left there: a doll, a small bouquet of flowers, and a heart-shaped pillow with the message, "I don't know why your mom would do this to you." A question that seems to elude a valid answer for ordinary people while waiting for the judicial process to begin was addressed by the press, particularly by fanpage.it. They published information provided by Lieutenant Colonel Carlos Romano, commander of the Molecular Biology Section of the Scientific Investigations Department of Messina. The public prosecutor's office had delegated the case to him. Lieutenant Colonel Romano stated that one of the key aspects of the investigation was determining whether the crime took place at Martina's house or at the site where the body was found. He explained that after a detailed inspection of Martina's house, it was confirmed that the attack did not occur there. The examination found no blood traces typical of such violent acts, which would remain even after cleaning. Similarly, no blood traces were found in Martina's car, which was also thoroughly investigated. Based on this information and other collected data, the expert concluded that the crime was entirely committed at the site where the body was discovered. Romano also noted that Martina's decision to cover her daughter's body with a plastic bag before the attack contributed to the absence of blood traces on her clothing. Although fingerprints of the accused were found on the garbage bags, confirming her handling of them, the crucial detail provided by the officer was that the shallow grave where Helena was buried had been dug by Martina hours before the murder. It was determined that she acted entirely alone and that only 17 minutes elapsed from the time of the murder to the final act of burying the body. Only 17 minutes elapsed from the time Martina and her daughter left the house until the woman returned alone. In that brief period, she extinguished the bright light of Helena's life. The trial, which would determine Martina's future, began on June 12, 2023, in the criminal court presided over by Judge Sebastiano Miemi. The prosecution was represented by Fabio Escavan and Assunta Musel, while a lawyer also represented the victim's family. Martina's defense posited that the woman had intended to take her daughter's life and then her own, acting under a state of dissociation. During the trial, the lawyers admitted the lists of witnesses and agreed that the first to be called by the prosecution would be the 4 Carabinieri officers who conducted the investigation. The first hearing took place a few days later with Martina, then 26 years old, taking the stand. Driven by the prosecution's questions, she burst into tears several times as she described the day she killed her daughter. Although she continued to withhold specific and crucial details of the events, she did reveal some information. For instance, she stated that on the morning of the incident, she had seen the shovel and barbecue while preparing to go for a run. She took these items, placed them in the car, and left them hidden at the edge of the field. After returning to the house, she noticed that the tools were visible from the roadside, which made her realize that they needed to be hidden more effectively. Martina revealed that she initially hid the tools deeper into the land when she realized they were visible from the street. She was at a critical juncture in her life, grappling with the collapse of her relationship with Alessandro, the end of her new romantic relationship, and the failure of a college exam. Feeling hopeless and concerned about what her daughter would do without her, she decided to end both their lives. It is noteworthy that an analysis of her cell phone revealed online searches related to the effects of suicide. Martina stated that after picking up her daughter from daycare, Elena had told her that she hadn't slept well the night before because her father was with his girlfriend. Overwhelmed by thoughts, Martina went to the bathroom to cry. She admitted that when she left the house with Elena, she briefly returned inside to grab the knife and garbage bags, which she placed in her purse before heading to the lot where she had previously left the tools. She recounted that, upon seeing her hands covered in blood and realizing Elena was no longer with her, she had the image of digging the earth with her hands in her mind, although earlier she had described using tools for the task. Alessandro also took the stand to describe his relationship with Martina, noting that their relationship ended after he discovered that she was exchanging messages with another man while he was under house arrest. He mentioned an argument that had arisen when Martina saw a photo of him with their daughter and his new partner. A key intervention came from psychologist Roberto Cafiso, appointed by the prosecution, who characterized Martina as immature and lacking introspection. Responding to questions from Martina's defense team, Cafiso noted that the accused described feeling as though a demon was inside her. Martina claimed that a demon inside her drove her to end her daughter's life, but the psychologist argued that there were no signs of a serious dissociative reaction or a loss of contact with reality. The forensic doctor reiterated that Elena did not die immediately, and the police officers confirmed that the knife used in the attack was never found. After the final arguments from both parties, the prosecution requested a 30-year prison sentence for Martina, considering the generic mitigating factors, such as her confession and cooperation with the investigation. The defense, on the other hand, requested an acquittal on the grounds of incapacity to understand, and as an alternative, if acquittal was denied, they sought the recognition of the mitigating factors presented by the prosecution and the exclusion of the aggravating circumstance of premeditation. The judicial process concluded on July 12, 2024. Judge Sebastiano Miemi, the presiding judge, delivered the sentence, sentencing Martina Pati to 30 years of imprisonment. At the court exit, the lawyer representing Elena's family expressed dissatisfaction with the result, as they had hoped the court would not consider the generic mitigating circumstances. The defense also considered the sentence too severe and announced their intention to appeal. The defense considered the sentence too severe and announced their intention to appeal. As of this time, we have not found information indicating that the appeal process had been initiated. Like in many similar cases, this sentence turned out to be a bittersweet resolution. While the conviction of the person responsible for ending little Helena's life was achieved, it does not change the fact that her family will never see this beautiful, loving, and intelligent girl grow up. Unfortunately, her future was tragically cut short by her own mother's actions. Now, Martina will have ample time to reflect on the grave mistakes she made, though her actions can never be undone. Well, dear audience, this concludes yet another investigation. What are your thoughts on today's case? We would love to hear your comments, as your opinions are very important to us. Please remember to express them with the utmost respect for both the victim and the other viewers, as well as for us who will be reading them. Before you leave, don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with anyone you think might be interested. See you in the next criminal investigation.